Alright, let's get started. For those of you who are regulars to our channel and you've been with us for a long time, you have known us to be nothing but completely honest when it came to opinions on games and matters in the gaming world. But guys, I really have no idea where to begin here. I mean, you guys kind of know everything already. It's really not a secret to anyone. Yeah, and this is the part of the video where we would normally get into the game and start reviewing it, but given that Mighty No. 9 has such a huge history, and it's very personal for a lot of gamers out there, I feel it's really best that we address the elephant in the room. For the past 3 years, thousands of Kickstarter backers waited and waited and waited for the spiritual successor of MegaMan to finally be realized and come out in full glory, showing just how much we as a community really wanted back what we'd been missing out on. Not to mention, bring some new life to the platforming shooter genre, which had been pretty dormant for some years now. Well, that and, well, Capcom isn't doing anything with it. I mean, come on, we're starving here! Mighty No. 9 was to be that new generation which would kickstart it all into gear, and in 2013, we couldn't have been more eager. Keiji Inafune, one of the big names and ex-employee of Capcom, and not creator of MegaMan. Seriously? How many people have been fooled into believing this? Well, whatever. Keiji announced at PAX 2013 that he would bring fans back a new kind of MegaMan, in the form of Mighty No. 9, should he get enough support and donations from fans. His original goal was almost immediately broken, and in the end of his campaign ended up with over $4 million. Within the 3-year waiting period, which stunned everyone, constant problems were surfacing that kept progress of the game's creation from being fully met. First off, Concept wanted the game to be available on over 10 different platforms. Jesus Christ! Not realizing the drawbacks of games not functioning the same on each console, this caused a lot of delays for Mighty No. 9. No other developer in their right mind would have been that striving. Hopes of the game even coming out at all were rapidly fading as the delays only persisted every time we got closer to a release date. Not to mention, in between these times, there were a lot of public relation issues as well, with backers of the project not getting their promises. Making matters even worse, as if they weren't bad enough, the game as a whole, the more we were shown, just ended up looking worse, and nothing like originally envisioned. From what started as an ambitious Kickstarter with thousands of supporters over the course of a 3-year waiting period, had every single backer turn tail and dread release day and just wish the game would die in obscurity so they could forget they even pledged money to this failure of a Kickstarter. Mighty No. 9, before the game was even released, has gone down in history as the worst crowdfunding experience that has been transformed into one huge scam. But lo and behold, the game finally came out, and there were still problems. Upon the game's release, backers of the game who were promised a copy of the game on a console of their choice were often getting screwed over by receiving ports of the game they didn't want or couldn't play. Or, on worse occasions, not getting their copy of the game at all, physical or download code. Many of those that did somehow get their games had other issues to deal with. The PlayStation 4 version of the game could often get corrupted on its download and ruin the game, making it look like a pixelated mess. The frame rate for the PlayStation 3 version was very choppy and doesn't run smoothly at all. Similar issues like this one can also be in the PlayStation 4 version as well. And the Wii U owners? Ugh, jeez, they got it the worst of all. Their version of the game, if they were unlucky enough, would straight up brick the Wii U console. So now not only do they not get to play the game they pledged, but it's now the direct cause of their now owned broken expensive video game console. Not since the E.T. game on the Atari 2600 have I ever heard of a game that has gotten such backlash and hazardous PR upon its release day. It really begs the question, what the hell happened here? Well, hopefully by the end of the video, we'll have shed some light upon the subject and maybe have come to a conclusion. So, thank you guys for sitting through that backstory. Let's finally dive in. This is Mighty No. 9. Heads up for spoilers, by the way. Oh, do you even care? In the year nobody knows, robots and humans live side by side. Violence has pretty much been done away with only the Colosseum serving as the entertainment for such things between robots. Yeah, that's just the world we live in.
Suddenly, as if right on cue, mayhem takes to the streets, and the city is now overrun with hostile robots, including 8 robot masters designed by scientist Dr. White.
No.
A mysterious virus has released itself, infecting everything technological, and only a select few robots have been able to avoid its corruption. Such robots as MegaMan, Beck, the mighty number 9. Being the newest of Dr. White's creations, his body is unaffected by the virus. Beck quickly makes work of the current hazards, but things aren't right, as Will White believes something bigger is afoot. Dr. Sana, the creator of the other new robot named Call, offers to help in any way they can. Beck, with his powers of restoration, yeah, he can do that, shut up, manages to locate and defeat all of his 8 robot master friends and restore them to normal before things went crazy. After all is said and done, William finds out that one of his original creations named Trinity was behind the entire mess. Beck, being the only one to handle himself and avoid corruption from Trinity, is sent to take her down. After her defeat, Beck restores her as well, and they all live happily ever after. Well, until after the 3-hour credits are up, and then we learn that Dr. White created Beck to think and feel on his own accord, and that he would be a new generation type of robot that would grow and strengthen the bond between humans and robots.
No.
However, this shady-looking scientist named Dr. Blackwell, who not only gets under Dr. White's skin, but forced him to change his name from Bill to Will, has doubts about the ideas of robots thinking on their own. William storms off with a kind of villainous speech claiming that soon everyone will understand.
I'll show you and everyone else who doubted me.
Okay, you know what, as far as the story goes, that's pretty much it. It's really straightforward with not much going for it. In fact, it's pretty damn boring. Add insult to injury, the way the story is told is on a level of toddler entertainment.
Sacre bleu! What happened to the lights? I'm scared! Mommy!
I'm sorry, but anybody tell me who this game is targeted at? Anyone?
Clearly not the thousands of adults who backed this game. Jeez Louise, man. I know we're not going for gritty and dark, and believe me, that's not what I need to enjoy a game, but can we at least have some form of self-respect and not go out of our way to annoy the player with probably the worst form of humor that any kid would roll their eyes at?
It's a good thing I'm not afraid of the dark.
Is this supposed to be funny or self-aware? I don't know, because I don't even think the game knows. The voice acting in the game is so gauche that it's kind of cringeworthy. All the characters are very one note. It's almost like they're not even trying. The story is handled so awkwardly and poorly it's not even animated. Not once do the characters ever move their mouths or make any major movements. It's a joke.
How hard could it be to add mouth movements to a character's face? Anybody could do it! I could do it! Watch! Animate my face, you idiots!
While we're on the topic of visuals, the game looks very dated.
Now, we have explained on several occasions in numerous detail how graphics a good game do not make. However, given the time, development period, and the money that was put into this game, I find it very hard to believe that the visuals could not have looked better.
The textures on all of the characters have some staircasing issues here and there, and explosions look like, well, as the internet puts it, pizza. Ugh, you know it's bad when Sonic the Hedgehog's official Twitter page is making fun of your game. Well, personally, I think he who lives in a glass house shouldn't throw stones, but hey, the point sticks. Hell, the advertising for this game wasn't doing it any favors.
You kill an enemy, and you can absorb their power-ups, stuff that'll make you faster and stronger, and make the bad guys cry like an anime fan on prom night.
For a game as simple and as short as Mighty Number 9 is, there is no excuse as to why the game looks the way it does. Uninspired, very basic run-of-the-mill stuff we've seen years before. It really makes no effort to push the boundaries, and at any point becomes pleasing to the eye. Some people have expressed they don't mind the visuals looking this way, and hey, if you want to be technical, yes, it could have been a lot worse, but you know what? It should have and could have been a hell of a lot better. Gameplay? Oh boy, here we go. Well, depending on what you're playing this game on, your experience could be different in a lot of ways. Right now, the PlayStation 4 and PC versions seem to be the most stable versions, with smoother frame rates and less issues. The PlayStation 3 version, more often than not, gets very choppy in a lot of areas, especially if the terrain is moving. You can get used to it after a while, but it's very clear that this is not 60 frames smooth. Sometimes the lag can also lock up the game. This has happened to me on quite a few occasions. The PC version actually crashed on me during a stream. So really, to start things off, you kinda gotta pick your poison. The game in total has 12 playable levels. You'll start the game at the Interstage, which will teach you how to play the game, but honestly, it's so easy to pick up, you really don't need it. You have a buster gun, a jump, and a dash. These will be the tools you use from beginning to end. One of the key features of this game is using your buster to damage your enemies to a point that you can use Beck's ability to dash into them, which will absorb them.
And make the bad guys cry like an anime fan on prom night.
Using the buster alone will take quite some time to destroy any oncoming foe. So the moment an enemy starts flashing any vibrant colors, that is your cue to dash into them for the quick kill. Doing so, though, has varying results. Depending on what color the enemy is flashing when ready to be offed, means Beck will probably get a temporary upgrade. Red means his buster will travel through foes and dish out more damage. Green will give Beck more running speed, and others have similar effects. One of the other points for doing this is really, well, for points. The more enemies you combo together using this dash trick will up your rank and increase your overall high score. But if you're a gamer like me, score has virtually meant nothing to you since the 1980s. Beating a game since then has kind of been reward enough. The dashing into enemies mechanic isn't one I'm totally against because there can be a bit of a rush when things are going your way, and you can't easily get the combos climbing. But there have been countless times where enemies have taken enough damage, but dashing directly into them has either resulted in me also taking damage or left me wide open for a new foe, which will always be nearby. The worst offense in this entire feature is that when you're forced to use it during boss fights. At key moments in a boss match, when you deal them enough damage, you'll have a few seconds to quickly get a dash hit on them to absorb the damage you've dealt. However, should you fail to do this for any reason, and there will be reasons, then the boss will fully regenerate all the health back that you spent time chipping away at. The bosses themselves are an interesting can of worms too, because I feel like there's a bit of an imbalance between them. Some of the bosses are cinched to take down with little effort, and one in particular has an instant kill move. And the others have moves that, if you're unprepared for or just unlucky, can't be avoided. The stages themselves also have interesting issues. The reason why you will likely die most of the time is because of one common element. Spikes, spikes, spikes! Most of your deaths will be at the hand of some instantaneous death trap. This is where the phrase trial and error comes into play. The obstacles usually aren't so bad, but once in a while there will be a curveball thrown at you that's going to force you to think on your feet and try to use different methods on succeeding. Occasionally, it can be as easy as just dashing over the whole stage. Yeah, don't know if that one was well thought out. Other than that, the enemy placement is fair enough. Not once did I ever feel I truly got cheated by a poorly placed robot. Besides, they can be dealt with in numerous ways.
On a side note, I did figure out an interesting ability that Beck has where he can jump backwards and shoot in a diagonal down motion.
He can do this by shooting and pressing the trigger button at the same time. This move is so bizarre because it's got so little functionality to it that I've just barely been able to find places to use it. Sometimes if an enemy is out of reach and I know he's going to attack me the moment I come near, I can use the ability to take advantage of it. But it's so rare that this happens, and there's other methods I could have used, and it just makes me scratch my head as to why it was even there. It's kind of like the backflip in Castlevania Dracula X or Castlevania Rondo of Blood. It's a neat little trick, but otherwise it doesn't have much practical use, except on those very rare occasions. But I guess it's better to have it than not, so kudos for trying something. Something I did think that it was kind of neat was if you defeated a certain robot master, that specific robot can pop up in a stage and help you out, usually by making the level a little easier to traverse and taking away something from the stage that gave the oncoming boss an advantage. For example, if you've defeated the electric robot master early on and went to the sniper robot master after, then the electric robot will then show up and disarm all of the traps for you, making the stage a lot easier to get through. That's kinda neat. While I've mentioned for the most part that stages aren't really anything special, the sniper stage I believe actually shows the most creativeness. Every other stage is pretty linear where you go from point A to point B with a mini boss in between, but this stage is all about searching. The 8th robot master will attempt to snipe at you from any point in the stage, and you must traverse back and forth throughout the entire level and find out where he's hiding. Do this enough and you'll be taken to the boss room. You see, if the levels were more creative like this, I probably would have had less to complain about. But other than that, everything is so mediocre and unoriginal that it can be very boring despite how easy it can be. Even with all those instant death traps, once you've learned where they are, you can pretty much make it through them with ease next time around. One thing that probably should be mentioned is that just like in MegaMan games, when you defeat a boss, you obtain their powers, which you can then use at your leisure. Some have their uses, like the sword, but most of them you can really dismiss as you have absolutely no need for them. Your Buster Gun is more than strong enough to defeat enemies and bosses, including the final boss. There is only one level specifically that forces you to use the special powers. That stage is the Robot Factory, which is structured like an obstacle course of infantile puzzles where you use the right power to get past the obstruction. Is this area too high for you to jump? Simple! Use the helicopter ability to float to the top. Is this switch to activate the door too far out of reach? Simple! Use the sticky bomb. Very easy stuff. When you reach checkpoints or lose enough lives, or just by stumbling upon them, you can find these energy canteens which you can then use to restore all of your health at any point in the stage. The downside is you kinda have to stay alive to use them. In other words, you can't save them for later use or for other levels. If you pick it up, make sure you have a reason to use it, because you won't get a chance later. But you can also carry only 2 at a time, which admittedly is kinda weird considering you can't save them. I just don't get it. If you find an E-tank, you should be able to keep it. Why is this game so picky? It gives leeway on some things, but not on the real convenient stuff. The level that everybody will probably hate no doubt in this game is the prison level. In this stage, you are forced to play as Call. Why is that bad? Well, she sucks. Call is a huge step down from Beck in every way. She can only fire off 1 blast from her gun at a time as opposed to Beck's 3 shots. She can't do any dash kills, but instead can crawl around to avoid enemies. She can't absorb any of them, so the only thing she can do is either shoot them enough to blow them up or avoid them altogether. Occasionally, she can get a shield to defend herself, but trust me, you're really never going to need to use it. The goal for the stage is to find security cards to get to the end. Once there, Call has to fight a boss. Now, this has got to be the most boring boss fight in the game. Mainly because Call cannot deal any major damage to this thing whatsoever. You can shoot the eye off its head, which will have it attack sporadically, but what you need to do is try to let it spawn other enemies that will, if you're lucky, drop down a bomb. The boss will then eat it, causing it to be damaged. This fight just in general is very slow paced. The boss itself is no major threat, as you can easily avoid its attacks, but waiting for the bombs to spawn can sometimes take far longer than desired, as it's possible that it will spawn security bots only that will restore the boss's eye. So, just rinse and repeat and hope for the best. Speedrunners would hate it though.
Well, that about covers it for the gameplay mechanics of Mighty No. 9. Still, there are a couple more things to mention.
By going to the game settings, you can adjust the lives meter to go all the way to 9 and start every stage with maximum lives. Why? Well, why the hell not? There's no penalty or reason not to have maximum lives, so no need to earn them. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering why Beck has been gold up to this point, well, guess what?
There's DLC! Of course, why wouldn't there be?
I'm not sure if Golden Beck is available to everyone or just the backers, but yeah, he's just a skin. He adds no benefits to the game, no special powers, so don't worry. One DLC feature that is available for everyone, however, is the Ray Vermilion story arc and character. By purchasing this, you will unlock another story scenario where Beck is forced to fight one of White's older creations who's gone insane and loves murdering other robots. I think. I don't know, the story blows. After you defeat her, she then becomes playable and then can go on her own story arc, which means playing the same levels as Beck. Ray, unlike Mighty No. 9, struggles with a deteriorating affliction that's killing her and forces her to feed on the lives of other robots. She doesn't know much about herself, but she wants answers, from the only man she can apparently identify, which happens to be Dr. White. Ray's gameplay is quite different from Beck as well. Instead of a blaster, she has Wolverine claws and slashes her way through all of her enemies. Her dash attack also deals damage to oncoming foes as well. Alright, let's not beat around the bush. Just look at her. You know what her representation is supposed to be. But putting that aside, Ray friggin' sucks. Yeah, I know already that I said that Call sucks, but you know what? She sucks too. You would thinking that have a second character to play as would be fun. But the novelty is worn thin real quick because she has one major flaw. Her health is constantly depleting, and it will not stop until it reaches 1. The only way to restore health, I think, is to destroy enemies. But strangely enough, it doesn't really work all that well. Sometimes I find myself getting health back by attacking and absorbing foes, but most of the time it doesn't work. The truth be told, because of this, I'm lucky if I can make it to the boss at all. This health problem, combined with me having to get up close and personal with every enemy including bosses, made this far more frustrating to the point that I really didn't give anymore. I've already had to play this game like 3 times on 3 different consoles, and now the game wants me to do it all over again with her just so I can see what her lame story is about? Yeah, 3 words, YouTube and that. And that's assuming if you even care. But just in case you do, what happens in the end is, near death, Beck uses his powers of restoration to heal her and get her secured. Then the artist apparently got lazy because we don't have any more pictures to follow the story up with. Apparently Beck's healing powers don't work all that well on this robot, so she's discarded, but later escapes having learned absolutely nothing, yet still plans to seek out Dr. White for answers.
So, in short, a complete waste of time. Is the picture becoming clear at this point?
Alright, so in conclusion of the game review, while it's not the worst game I've ever played, Mighty No. 9 does to a small extent deliver on the formula of a MegaMan game that can, for some, be at the very least enjoyed for what it is. It's not groundbreaking by any means, pushes no barriers, doesn't stand out at all, and is all around second rate. The story, as I said, is pretty low tier, and not the least bit engaging or exciting. The characters feel like they have no emotional bond or connection. The visuals are unappealing and don't wow me in the least, but the gameplay for what it's worth isn't horrible. It showed promise in a couple of neat ideas, but didn't fully realize them. The music, on the other hand, is quite good. Not great, but there are a few good tracks worthy of listening to. Just the whole thing in general feels like an unfinished game and released by designers who aren't experts in the field they're in. In spite of all that, still, I won't say I didn't have some enjoyment while playing. I mean, the most fun I had was actually when I was live streaming the game with all of you guys and engaging in conversations about the game and the potential it could have had, while also discussing what probably happened behind the scenes.
As to my opinion, now look, I do not hate the man. I do, however, think Keiji Inafune was way too ambitious for his own good. I mean, given what we know about the man's history, he really was only just a businessman and not really a creative person or a game programmer. And all he really had done was produce a few Mega Man games here and there.
He handled some of the character designs after the game was being made, and his only notable feature was creating Zero further down the line, who he then tried desperately to replace Mega Man X, but that's another story. Hideki Kamiya, behind Platinum Games, has even stated as much that Keiji is by no means a credible creator, just a businessman. Once Keiji left Capcom, he immediately started his own company and in his eagerness began the Kickstarter to get his game going. Truth be told, I believe the man was far too inexperienced and really had no grasp on just how big this whole idea would be or how troublesome it would become to his band of workers, who probably are just as inexperienced as he was and fresh on video game development.
I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You know, you read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Well,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
One of the biggest blights that didn't go well was hiring a public relations community manager named Dina, who made a habit out of trying to inject her politics into the game as it was being made, and was actively banning backers from the beta of the game they had a right to just because they didn't agree with her views. Keiji, when approached about this, did nothing. Eventually, she left the company supposedly of her own accord, with Concept claiming they were upset she was leaving, while the rest of the world couldn't wait to boot her out the door and be thankful she was gone. I'll be the first to admit I'm not a fan of Keiji's business practices or some of the decisions he's made in the past, but I can be certain that his heart was in the right place. I truly believe he wanted to make a good game and deliver to his fans what they really wanted, having all expectations realized. But his overenthusiasm unfortunately got the better of him, which in the end resulted in this catastrophe. It's sad to say, but this blight on gaming has definitely hindered kickstarting projects for other developers, and no doubt has probably intensified the pressure for their games. Such games like Bloodstained and Shenmue 3 are now, because of this, probably going to have a huge fire underneath them. They can't just be good games now, they better be home run successes, just to show that there's still hope for crowdfunding ideas. I mean, who could blame the audience, right? I mean, after having been scammed the first time, why would they want to donate to anything else? In a unique way, Keiji Inafune has kind of become the George Lucas of video games. Someone who was once part of something great, but was given far too much credit for it and eventually got exposed. The man himself has openly expressed that he is fully responsible for all of the problems that the game has had, and realizes just how much of a flop it's been, and damaging to his reputation. In addition to accepting the harsh criticism that has been thrown his way, truthful and or crude it may be. However, there's been quite a controversy stirring about some statements he's made during a live event from Concept when the game released. Keiji's translator says, "There is not any additional DLC beyond the raid DLC. The reality is they put everything into making the game. They didn't try to microtransaction it out. They didn't try to DLC it out for extra money. They put it all in. So for now, this is what you see and what you get for the Mighty No. 9 world. But again, we can hope that if things go well, there'll be sequels. Because I'll tell you what, I'm not getting my 2D side-scrolling fill. And at the end of the day,
even if it's not perfect, it's better than nothing."
It's better than nothing? Is that all you can really say? Because, I'll be honest, I think a lot of people would have preferred nothing. Because, let me tell you, if a game is bad, it can still be enjoyed in an ironic fashion. But if a game is disappointing, that is actually worse. Especially when thousands of fans donated their own hard-earned money into the project for it to even exist at all. When you accept people's money in a Kickstarter campaign to deliver a product, you have an obligation to make sure that that product is a quality result. You know, a lot of people have been wondering, since this campaign raised over $4 million, just where did it all go?
well, first of all, let's be honest. All of this wasn't going to be used for the game. Hell, even Keiji himself said so. The company had to stay in business, so taxes likely took a cut from the funds, keeping the lights on and the building and the electricity paid for. The voice actors for the game needed to be paid, the game developers, sound artists, the family dog needed a haircut probably, and hell, Keiji probably needed a new car. That would still probably leave a good chunk left over, but let's think about this. The original kickstarting goal for Mighty No. 9 to even exist was only $900,000. Now, take that number and consider all the things that needed to be paid for. Taxes, employees, electricity. That $900,000 probably just got a lot smaller, didn't it? Now, it's only my guess, so don't take it too seriously, but I think out of all the donations that he got, only the exact amount of $900,000 was actually used for the game. The rest of it probably paid for everything else, and I literally mean everything else. The CG cartoon short, the Red Ash campaign, the beta, the other projects Keiji was probably a part of. The backers for Mighty No. 9 may have funded all these other projects unknowingly.
We laugh at the potential of Mighty No. 9 actually getting a sequel, but given everything that I've just stated, it's very possible that there's probably funds down there for this to happen. But with all that's been said, do you even want it? The only thing that this entire catastrophe has reminded us of is that when it comes to MegaMan, accept no substitutions. I'm your host, William Morris. Thank you for watching the BrotherhoodOfGaming.com video game review show. And until next time, keep on gaming. But before you go, hit that subscribe button right down there. It would do us a lot of great things if you did. Come back and check out more awesome reviews that we've done. There's playlists over there. Oh look, a Tales of Retrospective, some speed runs, and more game reviews, and Sega vs. Super Nintendo. Really cool stuff. You should check it out. It might be down your alley. There's also some social media stuff up there if you want to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and all that stuff to see what's coming up down the line, or give us your own input. Until next time, gamers, keep on gaming. We'll see you next time.